of Spirit Insight. With me today, I have my dear friend Julie. This is Ask Me Anything, and Julie had some questions that she thought y'all want to hear. So we're just going to have a relaxed little chat. So thank you for joining me, Julie, and I'll hand it over to you to ask me whatever you want to talk about tonight.
Well, I just wanted to find out more about you. So you were born, and then what? Did you have any, what was your first memory? Did you have crazy experience, memories, or?
You know what's weird is after a lot of my death experiences, it's almost like a different aspect of me stepped in. So I only have these really strong memories of things I needed to remember or heal that, I have here and there memories of things that formed me or maybe where my energy might have split. But the first thing I can really remember, some of it's just from photos, oh, I look like that. You know what I mean? So it might spike a memory, but I am trying to think. My earliest memory, honestly, is we had a 191-acre farm, and it was an old quarry, so there was lots of ponds, and that's how my first death experience happened. But in the spring, sometimes it would dry out. Well, we had a monastery and some other things near us, and so my mom would let the nuns, because they were always teaching and doing different things, she would let the nuns come and check out plant life. She'd let them use our property to study different things. Well, they had this type of thing where they, since there's no quarry, that they wanted to, practice, what is that called? Archaeology. Cool. So they were just shifting through everything to see what they could find. And while they found, I don't remember what dinosaur it is, but they did find a dinosaur skeleton. Yes, yeah. So, and they had it put in some museum. So that's really cool. But that was one of my earliest memories, is them coming to our property, and I'd have to show off being me. And my mom would be so embarrassed, because I'd be like, look at me, I can try to somersault. Well, I wasn't graceful, and my nickname was Gracie because I wasn't so graceful. Turns out I had a depth perception problem. They found out once I was an adult. There's always a figure. Yeah. So I would sit here and be trying to show off. So that's, I think, the clearest memory I have of being little.
So I don't really understand completely what you do, but I know you talk, just saying, I know you talk a lot about, because I'm just learning this stuff. So you talk a lot about the ley lines and grids, and correct me if I'm way off, but so I've heard that dragons are associated with some of the grids or the ley lines or something, the dragon grid or something. Guardians. Okay. So does that dinosaur have anything to do with that? Was that the first
a physical manifestation?
Yeah, hi, remember us? This is what you're going to be doing.
I have no idea. That is a really great question, because under my understanding is they existed in a way here, but they were more of an energy body. But I'm not sure if they ever physically manifested here. I believe they did, because, okay, this came to my attention kind of almost to answer my question. Spirit likes to do that to me when I ask my question. They'll throw something in my path. And I happened to see this thing on the Chinese zodiac. Every animal on it still exists except for the dragon. So why would the dragon be the only mythical animal? But there are stories dating way back of that they really did exist. People worked with them, but they harnessed their power in different things. And so, how mankind is, they wanted the villages where they existed, people wanted that power. They thought they could kill them for the power, all of these things. So dragons still exist. Other than, in the physical, they went into the multidimensional kind of thing, just like the Sasquatch that I've had lots of experiences with. And I've had a lifetime as a dragon. That's hence why I took the name Drache. It's Old Germanic for dragon. So they're very close to my being. And but that is my understanding of the evolution and what happened with the dragons. They went multidimensional to save themselves, so to speak, because of our ignorance, like many other things.
Yeah, smart. So was that for sure a dinosaur, or could it have been a dragon?
That I don't know. I know that He said,
I mean, I know they call it a dinosaur.
Right. Well, and they even said, now they think they were giant birds. Some think that they were aquatic. And I think possibly. I mean, what do we really know? A lot of our history is false. I mean, so much of it is.
I believe all of it, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. All right. So we're on the same page there. So
yeah, pretty much
older history, but
anything that they taught in school is a lie, and just my opinion. And that's why I don't pretend to know much, but that's why I know it never resonated.
Right.
And were you like that as a child too? Like in school?
Well, this is the funny part, and they still do it to me, even during meetings or other things I attend. If it's not meant for me, I literally either black out, leave my body, or appear to be asleep and narcoleptic, but will absorb what I need to. In fact, it's a funny thing for especially medical school. I left medical later, but when I was trying to learn that, they even made me go through all these tests. They even put me in a separate room after to take the test, because I would always blank out or fall asleep during these lectures. Yet I would still ace the test. I was the class president, and I would still ace the test. And they're like, "You were out cold. How is this possible?" You know what I mean?
You looked like you were sleeping. Like
yeah. I was like out. So, and then they thought maybe I was cheating, so they put me in a room isolated by myself to take the test after the lecture. All sorts of stuff. And then they sent me to the doctor before they let me go on clinicals, because they wanted to make sure, is there something wrong there? No, I'm just different. But yeah, I found that in school, and even it was like they only focused on certain things. And and my son's the same way, if it didn't interest me, if it was not for me, it was like totally toned out. Like you can hear it. Like the first time I ever had an issue with learning geometry, I took it twice because like I'd never not succeeded at something. And it just did not fit with me. Like I could not, they didn't line up, nothing. It's just like, that makes no sense. It would not literally compute in my being, which had never happened to me before. So yeah.
What about math?
This is the fun part. Okay. Like I know there's sacred geometry. I mean, I've been shown that in this Fibonacci sequence. Excuse me. But I never liked math. And they got really upset with me because those national scores that you take. I got way above average, but yet I get C's at the most because I wouldn't do my work. I'm like, this is boring. This is lame. I'm not doing it. Kind of thing. Like I had this whole disassociation with math at the time. So they were like, she's just not applying herself. Look at these tests. She knows this stuff. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't seem like it was important in that sense of, yeah.
Important or... Yeah, I get that. Why am I learning this? Tell me where I'm learning this.
Yes. I mean, I excelled at English to the point, and this is funny and kind of comes full circle for me now. I had writing skills with an amazing teacher, and he decided to teach for that year Norse and Greek mythology. And I scored a 98% for the year, and he graded on a curve. So the rest of the class mostly failed. They all loved me. But the fact that I knew it like it was the life I lived, like I knew this stuff, it was freaky. So I always laugh about that, because that's the only time I remember, like, I really this is my thing. English was my thing. Words. And now,
did you know back then? Like, did you back then at that age? Did you have a conscious connection to like, oh, I've lived this, or were you just writing? Like it didn't really faze you.
Well, I felt like I knew it. Like there was this something within me that was just like, I know this. How do I know this? This feels like something I can't even get into it. And then years later, I found out I do have Norse lineage, so they're in 1600.
You had like that knowing when you were writing.
And it was weird because for years I had this thing about, and people would call me Persephone, which is the Greek mythology, which is interesting because I'm Pisces, so that's when the earth rebirths. and that's part of my whole story about being source code and rebirthing the earth grid. I mean, all of these things, it's all these weird synchronicities that all go kind of together.
So were you bullied a lot as a child? Like, because did you fit in?
Well, for me, it was kind of like people either love you or they don't. And after my experience, I didn't have too much issues that I recall until after my experience. And I think because of the changes in me and all my abilities opening up in these various things, people sense that energy. So it created a lot of dissonance between me and my two older siblings, because they're 5 and 6 years older, especially the one 5 years older, just because of the fact that he was a baby till I came along. So there was already a little bit. So the only ones that really ever bullied me was, my older brother. I don't recall, there was those weird things, like where you know how back in grade school, where if it's your crush, they were mean to you just because, you know what I mean? Yeah, that gunk. But I always got, oh, you're weird, but in a good way. So I was friends with all the different groups of people. Back when I went to high school, it was the jocks, and then the band, and then the tech geek kids, and then there was what they called the burnouts, because the ones that smoked or hung out outside. So I had friends with all of them. I sat with all of them. There you go. I didn't I just kind of flowed, but that was always what I got, even as an adult. This is my crazy or weird friend, but you'll get her, and she's awesome, but she may talk about things you're just not going to get. And the funny part about that is, literally, when I moved away, they all started having their own awakenings. They're like, we get all that stuff. And they call me or message me, and I'm like, yep. Huh. So it's kind of funny. It was right after I left, I'm like, oh, you wait till now.
So even back then, would it be safe to say you resonated, you attracted the vibration, the higher, how do I say it? So for me, I guess I attracted everything to help me know what I don't want to be like, and experiences that shaped me,
Yes.
strengthened me, because they were shit and horrible. And so for me, I didn't attract anybody that really helped, or everybody helped me, but in alignment, in a positive way, that. I was always just made fun of. I never fit in, period. So you attracted more of not positive, but you know what I mean, the
yes. I think the only teasing I got, my first crush would call me Lori Lush's lamb chop lips. And the other boy that had crushed on me up the street would call me Shark Nose, because my nose is really pointy. I got the witch nose going on now.
That's mean.
Well, yeah, but I didn't, it was weird because I never really took it as mean. I never got upset or any of those things. Right. So, not really. I don't remember ever crying because somebody was really mean to me, other than my brother. He had a way of getting to me, and he'd have his friends bully me once he got too old to bully me himself. So there, other than that and the weirdness of that, because they were 5, 6 years older, so they were in high school when I'm in middle school, trying to just make it through the day, So other than that, no. There was a lot of up things like that, that happened with my brother, and just the extent of the bullying, but not with siblings. Schoolmates or anything too much, I was a peer counselor even in high school. I've always been
oh wow, you came right out of the blue helping.
Right. Oh yeah. In 5th grade, I was with this other thing. Oh, the program. I help with the program. I am special. So I guess I was always trying to help other people. Now that I think of it, they had some good programs.
I was the one in that program. I am special. I'm the one that was put into those things because
okay.
I never fit in, so I was always the special one.
Yeah.
So you had said in the very beginning something, and it stuck with me. Are you? And I'm just going to ask, and you don't have to answer. But are you a walk-in then? Have you?
Well, as I've grown on my spiritual path, my understanding in my truth, I never claim it for anyone else. As far as that, my understanding of the blueprint and the soul cloud system that I get into sometimes, from chatting with me, that, I understand that I have this soul collective and that I am the anchor to the earth grid, like almost like an antenna point, right? So this soul collective moves through me. And, I think, there's some people that say this, I'm not sure, like 3 or 4 of this, what spirit has given me the name, personality complexes that have different strengths and different things from different other lifetimes. You're connected to them in the now quantum space. So what my understanding is like whatever gifts and understandings I need to move through what I chose in this life, I pull on those and connect those in order to understand and move through this. So I understand from some of my experiences that like a higher aspect of my own soul group connected or merged with me, or sometimes, so my consciousness switched to more of a higher frequency because they were more elevated in the sense of their understanding and growth that they had done. So it brought me to the next level energetically. So that is my understanding of it, because I had the incident I don't often talk about, and I don't think I've talked about it in an interview that I know of, that one day, I think it was after my third death experience, I was laying there on like a futon watching TV with my husband, and I think I went to, I was just laying there. Actually, wait a minute. Pardon me. I don't think the TV was on. I think we were just waking up. I think I just crashed down there because it was cooler, I think, that at night to be downstairs. And I was just waking up and sitting there with him for a little bit, and my vision went really weird. I got like these weird violet and like I think maybe blue lines going up and down, almost like you would see on a heart monitor, like this. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was seeing like a honeycomb grid, and no matter whether I closed my eyes or whatever, it was not going anywhere. And next thing, I could not move my body. Like I felt like a dead weight, like I wasn't in my body. And because I tried to raise my arm, and it was just like, it felt like, it felt like it weighed 100 pounds kind of thing. I couldn't. I'm like, something's not right. And then, and after, I want to say it lasted like a good 5-10 minutes. I mean, that part of it and that grid not going away. And my husband and I were concerned, he didn't know what happened to me, because then I couldn't even remember who I was. Like, I didn't know my name for at least like 2 hours, after, like, I think it was, by the time he got me to the ER, it was probably an hour later. And like another hour later, they're like, who are you? And I'm like, like I couldn't tell them who I was. And, they ran all these tests, of course, couldn't find anything. They ran, they ran all the heart tests and the stroke tests and all these other things. They're like, well, maybe it's an atypical migraine. We've never seen this before, whatever. I never had an episode. But after, they did put me on for a little bit because they scared me into it, how that goes, anti-seizure med, just in case. Because they're like, oh, you could stroke if you don't, the whole scare tactic. But it didn't do anything for me. It didn't change me having these experiences or anything. So I went back off of it. I'm like, no, this just doesn't feel right. Never did. It's not helping me. And he's like, fine, you can stop it. So I did. But yeah. So anyway, none of the tests proved anything. So I don't. Yeah. even the EEGs and stuff, they couldn't tell it. It didn't show a seizure. It didn't show it didn't show anything. But and the reason I'm bringing this up is because like my whole personality shifted after that.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like little Susie, mom, homemaker, all this stuff, and then it was like it switched into like more like I knew who I was, and I was living for me, and I like stood up for myself. I just like, I completely switched to kind of like, I have a mission, like I have things to do. I didn't know what they were yet, but it was like, I came in with a purpose. It was,
really, that's cool. And is your husband like the same? I use this loosely. The same as you? Does he, you know what I mean by that, right?
Well, I was told in my band Quantum Hypnosis, I said he was another aspect of me, of source code, him and my daughter. And we've had many lives together. I've seen this even in regression, and he was in my fourth death experience as my soul collective. So I know this. And he's had his own experiences, but, being how he was raised, he has a genius IQ, all of these things that he just, religion didn't make sense to him. So how was spirituality? Because they didn't have the answers, because he was the whole church thing, the Methodist church and the choir, the altar boy, whatever they call all that stuff. He was like totally involved in all of that. And when the priest when he got to a point where he had questions beyond them, they would just like shut him down, or, you don't know what you're talking about, all this. So he had a real time with that. So, and he even told me now, like, I know these things are, real and that these things happen. He's like, I'm just not at the same understanding as you. He's like, and I know I was told, like, I'm here just for the earth experience and to support you. Because they've literally showed me, like, he's almost like an energetic filter. He's almost like a sponge. So, like, if there's energies through me or around me, it's like he's like Gandalf, thou shalt not pass. He's like my energetic filter. So, but, that comes with a price, and so, we've had to do a lot of energy work, and to get rid of attachments and different other things with my husband, because before we were aware what he was and that he would get downloads or that, he would get things for people, now we can relate it to people like, oh, that's for you and whatever. And this is a message for you. Before he couldn't do that. So,
he must have been a mess.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, because I came in and out of consciousness. That kind of happens when you have these experiences, right?
I don't actually.
Oh, well, like from my understanding and experiences, as you integrate and shift, sometimes you can go back to sleep where you're, I call it back to sleep, whatever you want to call it, or you're not as connected. So like I was coming from the medical training perspective, like what's going on with my husband. Well, he was my fiance at the time, and so I didn't have the skill set at that time, when we were like 20 something, to help him or understand what was going on, because
were you a nurse? Did you?
I was a medical assistant. Assistant. Yeah.
Okay.
And because here he would pick up on. I had experiences before he moved into the house I had bought, where there was this very angry soul who owned it. They were the original owners, him and his wife. And well, he passed and she got too old to stay alone. So they sold the place to me and she moved in with the daughter. But this soul was very angry and yelling at me, like as if I were her, and saying like, why did you leave me? What happened? And I just explained, I'm not her. And your daughter's taking care of your wife. She couldn't stay here alone anymore, and everything is okay. He never confronted me after that. My friend did see him clear as a bell in the hallway, freaked out because she realized it wasn't a person, because the person she thought it was nowhere there. Mm-hmm. Right. But this energy, I think, didn't leave because I got the same energy signature and whatever else, like coming through my husband. He literally filters like he's an open channel, but I didn't understand it at that time. So it was almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like he'd just be like, and he looked just like him. It's almost like it transformed him at the time, I know you talk about this kind of stuff. Huh?
Like a shapeshifter?
Almost like, I think I could almost like see the overlay. You know what I mean? Like it was trying to step in, that energy. Yeah, I mean, we've since, I believe, removed that attachment, but I think he was like going through my husband for a little bit there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying, I can't say that for certain. I just think he was picking up on the energy signature more so than that. Like some people like if their possession, I don't know. But what I'm saying is we don't realize how much these energetic thought forms that are left over can influence us. One of the things Spirit says to me often is know your thought frequency, like know your frequency.
Yes, I've heard you say that countless times. How on earth? And how on earth does somebody know their frequency?
Well, from my understanding and what they're giving me is, is that whole self-healing where you sit within yourself and you go within your divine temple that literally when I work with people, I see it right kind of overlaid and right below the heart chakra, the divine portal, and it usually looks like a galaxy or a nebula or stars or whatever. So what they tell me is you need to go within, know thyself, right? So if you sit with your own energy long enough, that's why I've heard people recommend like 2 hours by yourself. Now I understand that because, if you, without all those outside energies going on, you're sitting with yourself. They told me to connect with nature and stay with yourself. So, that's kind of how you get to know what's authentically yours. You learn to feel what your energy by itself feels like. Your energy is your frequency. Nobody has the same frequency, And so that's mostly what they've shown me is that getting to know thyself, meditate within, look within, look where your triggers are, look, at all the things that are you. And being true and authentic to that opens up this awareness.
And then the outside world will throw you things to kind of help ingrain like your authenticity. Like, so like, especially since COVID, I'm quite happy, like being alone. I love Zoom. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like humans. I think you know that. So often and I'm not blaming because I allow myself, but often I find it's the outside experiences that are so easy to trigger me to think like, oh, I'm a piece of shit because I don't have a job. But when I sit in stillness and I'm painting or whatever I'm doing, like I'm okay and I'm happy and I'm content until I'm reminded, oh yeah, I don't have a job. I'm a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, those are those thought forms, I call it. Yeah.
Okay. And where do they come from? Like, other than parents and society?
Yeah, it's kind of conditioning. I mean, there's two forms that I see that, where some of it is like this, what I call almost like leftover residue, these individualized thought forms that are like left within the frequencies, that they kind of develop like a energetic entity of their own. And then there's the ego self that is triggered and comes up. Because from my work through the body and as a medical intuitive, I've had literally body systems or organs or different things literally talk to me. They had personality. Yeah. Oh, well, the one, I'll give a personal example because I can give that. A loved one, it literally yelled at me in an old man's voice, she needs to eat more vegetables, fruits and veggies.
That's so cool.
But, and I've gotten that, but not as loud and not different voices. But that one was really loud and very grumbly with different people I've worked with. It's always what's for the highest good. So I'll get different things. Or sometimes they'll validate. The body will be like, I'm so thankful that you're eating this, So it's interesting. But so I feel like within that, those complexes, because those are all energy agreements, because they are literally, when you break everything down, life down, everything is, to me in my story, is life energy, soul, source energy. Everything is made up of it because it was a thought form of source to create it.
Yeah, everything came from thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So because they showed me in my 2019 experience how Earth came from a thought form and
I've heard that.
Yeah. So, so you have to understand that they have kind of individualized based consciousnesses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when things are triggered and different things come from that, that's where like the ego plays on it, at least from my understanding. So it's within and without, because everything without is a reflection of your state of healing within. Yeah. So it makes sense to me.
Well, I understand what you're saying. So really, is it fair to say that it's just a matter of identifying those other thought forms that are not the I am,
right,
and really just reprogramming the I am?
Yes, because from my understanding,
full-time job, I am. That's it.
Right. All of those things are like self-judgment, but sometimes, they are to push us towards something. Like mine, I left the workforce in part to be my husband's caregiver because he, has Parkinson's. And so it's kind of interesting that, all these other things, if that wouldn't have happened, I would not have slowed down enough to even probably find my spiritual self again and have these more spiritually transformative experiences and everything else. But because that all played out that way, I'm able to be at home and work from home. But I never would have expanded that way if all these things didn't hit XYZ. So, and just different things within it. If like Spirit hadn't yelled at me, like I literally was in the middle of because I don't want to talk about this because it's kind of triggering to some people, but there was this incident at my job where literally I had to perform something, and I literally heard this being's soul cry out, and I was just like, whoa, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, and now I'm a totally different kind of healer, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the medical field. It was just that it no longer resonated with my soul. I was literally like, get out, this is,
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah,
but
I do.
That understanding of medical helps me do the rest of what I do. And it's interesting because I didn't even realize what I was doing when I worked in medical, because I remember many instances like I knew what was wrong with patients. Or the patient and the patient would tell me, you make me feel so much better. I never even picked up on it. But also because I was such an empath, I picked up so many things and absorbed the symptoms. Like they ran so many tests to diagnose things because I had all the symptoms, because I was literally absorbing that energy, and that's what made them feel better. Like I had no idea. And you can do that, but if you don't have the understanding to transmute that energy, it'll manifest in you. See,
right?
So if you don't know energy, or that this is even a thing energetically, then you don't know to clean it up. You don't know to transmute it. And I didn't. So that's why they got me out, because it's like I had the death experience right before that. So I was like, it was kind of like to go home to heal, because I'd taken on all this stuff. And they're like, you're supposed to have these children. They gave me a vision of having these children. And they're like, you can't, with what's within your body right now, that's not going to happen. So I had to go home for healing. But anyway, there was this instant where I understood that this little girl, and she was only 5, so you don't normally see it. I'm like, it's appendicitis. And I just knew it. And I said something to the doctor when I came out, from doing their whole thing, that we do. We take all their vitals and all their history and all that stuff. And normally I never stepped out of place. I'm like, I said, I swear it's appendicitis, but that literally I was urged to say it. Now I get it, where those urges come from. And he's like, oh yeah, it's literally kind of funny. He went in there and he came out not even 5 minutes later, white as a ghost, going, how did you know? And I would have missed it. But this is the whole learning lesson in ego, because then we sent it up to the local ER because we were only urgent care. Well, they were a rival contracted doctor's agency. So they often contradicted our diagnosis as a rule anyway, right? So that little girl went up there, and yeah, they sent her home with a tummy ache, and hours later it burst. So yeah, but then they learned. I mean, I understood from spirit later, and now it was a whole thing of learning.
The grand picture.
The grander picture.
The grander picture.
Which, she set out to do in that, But it was just, but I'm just saying, so I, never understood. I didn't get it on the level of like, how did you know these things? Because how would I know that? I didn't examine her. Yeah. That's what it is.
You just knew it. Yeah. No,
yeah.
I understand that. So, do you walk around? Do you go out a lot?
No.
Okay, I was like in the human land.
No.
Okay.
Only when I'm called to, and every time I'm called to, like I have to go out once a month and stuff for supplies. But if I'm called to go out in between that or anything else, it always ends up in some weird right place, right time scenario.
Oh, in a good way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Usually a good way. There's a few where I've, had some instances where like I skipped the timeline because I was supposed to die right there. But other than that,
and you actually see that?
Well, yeah, I had a vision that there was going to be this car crash, and of me leaving the car crash, like I was like a little ways ahead with the, with all the emergency vehicles trying to keep people away from the actual area. And they were like, "You're okay, you're alive." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I saw it blow up. I saw it burn." But it was like spiritual people, like, "You're safe, you're okay." I'm like, "They're not," Anyway, so we went out like 2 days later or so, and we were coming through the same area where they showed me this crash was. And all of a sudden, my daughter, who's very gifted as well, goes, "Mom, deer." And I'm like, right before, as she was saying that, I heard it in my head as well. So we're like, "Oh, we better be very careful, So we were like driving down the road, just keeping an eye out for deer. It was just the most unsettling thing. And my daughter even told me, she's like, the minute I got that, she puts protective bubbles. She's very like gifted that way. Anyway, so she put up she's like, "I put up the light shield, Mom." And I'm like, "Okay." So anyway, we went further down the road and we made a turn. And right in front of us, and we all saw it, my husband was with too, and this ghost deer, like it was like this far above the road, crossed in front of us. And I got this whole download, like, of like this, like this didn't happen and this deer lived because all this stuff. I mean, so not cool. The first time, but that was one of many there. I'm going, okay, well, yeah, just skip that. Don't want to experience that.
That is so cool. So why do you think that some people get that information and others don't? I mean, okay, so let me rephrase that. So there are certain people that don't even know anything about consciousness. And then there's others, and I'll use myself, where like I've spent my whole life just because I know it's my soul's plan, but just to like expand and grow and becoming more aware of all these different things that are going on. And I guess it's because I'm striving and seeking for the experience. Like, why can't I meet an alien? Why do they get to meet an alien? Like, I'm trying to be whatever you want to call it, awake, whatever you want to call it. And they're just going about their life and they get to meet all these aliens. Like, what's wrong with me again? So that's been an acceptance of like on that journey to self-love, I guess, right?
Right. So, and that's really what it is. Because when you find that self-love, you expand that heart space energy, which just opens that portal to divinity for experience.
And that's, and it's a struggle. Because I've been trying to do that. So
and that's all part of the journey. And some people don't even choose to do that in this lifetime.
I know, but they're the ones that get the aliens.
Yeah, you think, oh, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, and I think it's just to trigger.
No disrespect to those people.
Yeah, but, I think it's kind of like, okay, how they've shown me, and it's faster now because I said, you don't have to go that slow. But But all these little bits of that are to wake people up. Like, if you look back at synchronicities and these weird experiences, I had to have so many to be like, oh, now I get it. Like, I was a little slow, right? I mean, I had an understanding, but it was like, because I had alien and Sasquatch encounters. Like, I didn't even know there was Sasquatch at the time. I didn't understand they were multidimensional. Once I learned about it, I was like, oh yeah. So other than we saw these giant Sasquatch feet and we had an incident, where we did come in contact, but I mean, like, I didn't know the big glowing orbs, that can like kind of make a high vibrational noise, or like the weird broken trees, like how they break trees. I didn't know that was them. I didn't know like moving objects or putting objects in different places, where we blamed it always on ghosts, but they love all those kind of elementals and multidimensional love messing with your stuff and going in and out of portals. Because this is interesting, and people, however they want to take it, but I, in my Beyond Quantum Hypnosis, found out I was a Sasquatch many lives, and that's part of where my shamanism comes from. And so I said, because I like shiny fur, but they tend and open and create like portals and vortexes. That's where that gift of my healing comes from, of being able to open these portals and vortexes. And so they were visiting me as a young child. I just didn't understand, everything. And we had this old native man at a powwow walked up to me, and he handed me 5 stones. And he's like, hold on to these for me. I thought it was really weird. I didn't see where he came out of anywhere, and I didn't see him leave. So this was one of those weird mystic experiences. He was like elder, like you're wondering how this man is still walking, elder. And he had me hold these 5 stones. He's like, curious. And then he said some things. I think he did it to my husband too. I'm not sure in which order. And then he said some stuff, and I still cannot remember. It was weird rhymes. It didn't make sense to me. It was almost like I wasn't supposed to absorb. I swear he was like giving me codes, now that I understand it, right? And as he was walking away, just to like lock it home, and I get why he's doing this because I've done it to other people now. He was walking back across our tent because we were selling our jewelry there. And he said to me, there's this place. And he described where it was. He's like, there's a large paranormal vortex there. He's like, our people talk of this, or something. I don't know. I mean no disrespect to the indigenous, how I'm phrasing this, but that's kind of his tone and his wording. And I was like, oh my God, really? To give me this weird side and a wink as he's talking. I'm like, and he's kind of trying to walk away from me. And like, I'm like, that's where I grew up. I said, that's literally the land I grew up on. He's like, and he's like, and he just like walking. He disappeared. We could not find him. Like, it's like he just was lost. It was very mystical, and it freaked me kind of out because we looked everywhere and nobody knew who this guy was because it was kind of small, even though it was a powwow. And the weird part is, alignment wise, everybody else was indigenous and everything else there, but they accepted us, and we didn't have really a lot of things in line with it. My husband had made these dream catchers, but they weren't exactly dream catchers. They were more like themed dream catchers. I mean, that's the closest thing we could have anything to do with indigenous, and they didn't even know that. So the fact that we were even there with all these indigenous artists doesn't make sense, does it? So this whole thing, how we got there, and everything else,
divine orchestration.
Yes. So through that, I understood it because, okay, now that I know there's a vortex, now that I know this, they were transversing all the time. We had so many weird experiences we couldn't explain there. I had, alien encounters, Sasquatch.
What do they look like? Can you tell me about those?
What's that?
Your alien encounters?
Well, this is... I didn't take away from it any beings back then. Okay, I'll be honest with that. I have the full memory of certain experiences with them and being told my parents were alien, and like being told all of these things of why I incarnated, why I came up to this planet, from where I'm from, and the things I came here to do. And in my Beyond Quantum Hypnosis, when I was asked who that being was, I called him the All Father. If you think about All Father, that's Odin. My husband said later, he's like, Odin is the All Father. That's what they call him. That's what it's, I'm not saying that's anything, but so that being left me with, and here's me, like I must have been 10, going, your parents are aliens. And So this is during like the movies of the invasion of the body snatchers and all these other things. So I was freaking out about my parents, thinking they had snatched my parents. No, it's just I am not indigenous to the planet per se. Not that I feel any of us are, but I mean my energy or whatever that consciousness was that it was connecting with is not of this thing. And now I understand it and have seen this being that prefers to be called Sabrina. She's a higher aspect of me. She is a grid architect. So that's what she was one of the grid architects, and she came here to, like, that aspect of me that I carry came here to do that work. You had its source code to literally reboot and heal the energetic grid. So that was, like, I think the being that he was speaking of that aspect of me is like alien to this matrix.
So really that's all you came to Earth to do, was to just heal the whole planet and reverse it? I'm joking.
No, but to carry that source code of the original architects. There's a lot.
Tiny order.
No, I'm not saying it to, sound grandiose or anything, because there's a ton of us that are doing this. That's how come, our mutual friend, that's one of the things we came here to do together. And I'm slowly finding what I call, like, my jump team, because some found me and I found them, and we all have these memories that we came here to do some of this,
Wow.
But
that's so cool.
But my understanding is, and this is where, I think people might need a deeper understanding, is like, we all carry source code, but your consciousness, from my understanding, what I've shown from my friends, loved ones, everything in the work I do, is that some people's consciousness right now comes from a different source. It's projected in here. Like, they might be Arcturian or Pleiadian or whatever these various incarnations are. They have the ability to put their consciousness in the now moment through the quantum field. So some of us, like, mine is a grid architect that's specific to this Earth frequency, where other beings have come in from other places, other planets, like how people say Gaia put out the call. Well, some even have memories, like my daughter, of how they got here. Like, they're from their planet, their consciousness came here. But that consciousness has the same source, but the source of this consciousness is that being from that planet projecting. We're like humans in some of the Earth grid, and elementals that are incarnated here have, like, a source code to Earth. You know what I mean? Where theirs might be a source code to whatever galaxy, planet, whatever they're from, but we all carry it from source, like the prime source. So that's why some people, I feel, don't feel like they belong here, or it doesn't feel like home. It's not to you. Your source code is this planet or that planet. That's kind of the knowledge I got from Sabrina, who creates these architectures, right? So that makes perfect sense to me. I don't know if it's to you, but that's how it was explained to me. This is my truth. I don't claim it for anyone, because the main thing I say is to respect sovereignty, the sovereignty of other people to create their storyline. But this is the one I was given.
So how on earth do people, so I'll speak from the I resonate with not belonging at all. So I'm just like, I'm wandering aimlessly, and I've called for help, and I guess I just have to wait for timing. So anybody, who feels like they're wandering and we're asking for help, like, why do we not get received, like, at least where we're from, or that code, or something? Like, is it just timing? Is it?
Well, from my understanding, just because of what happened to me a few months ago, you haven't been activated. When you're needed, you will get your activation codes. Remember how I told you Spirit said that, like, Julie, I want to see where your things are. because they're saying it's time for you to be activated. Do you know what I'm saying? So like,
Jesus. Oh.
Well, I might just say that to whatever, but I'm just saying like everybody right now, I think, I don't want to do a generalization of everybody. I hate that I have to just claim this, but that they showed me people will start to remember. They're going to have all these memories of things they think are different lives or very vivid dreams, or even of being these aliens and different things, because they're tapping into what I call the soul cloud, which is this collection of personality complexes that make up who they are in this earth channel. Like my earth channel carries a couple different ones, like my Lemurian priestess, Sabrina, my great architect. I have an indigenous fractal, like all these higher understandings, and my Sasquatch, that all makes up my personality complex, which gives me those abilities because I've integrated it, right? So a lot of people are getting that right now, and they're trying to understand it. And that's another reason, I'm happy you asked that question, because that integration process is kind of difficult for some and easier for others. It depends upon how much you've expanded, your awareness. Like, how open are you to that this is the possibility?
Right.
So it's kind of like when you don't surrender to the flow of stores, you have that dissonance. So it feels like struggle or suffering, and you don't know what's going on, and you feel like you're being pulled apart, or going all different directions, or am I losing my mind, but if you just surrender into it, like, this might be a possibility.
Yeah.
Or literally your guides and your whole soul team, they can't interfere or speak to you even sometimes, depending upon your mission, unless you talk to them and you ask. And what I always recommend as an understanding is we have to be very specific, even in manifestation. You don't want to cut out the possibilities. So when we ask, let's say I want a new car, you have to break that down to, I need to get to point A to point B. It has to have this wheels and an engine, not say like, I need this big shiny sports car or I need this minivan. No, I need enough to hold those that I love. Yeah. I need it to be safe. I need it to have, 4 wheels. The universe is like that, because otherwise, if you give a specific, like, how people have like
everything else out,
right? Because from what I've seen of the void of creation, there's all these boxes of potentiality. So you're cutting out thousands of potentialities because you want X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So all of these things come into play with, like, how you were saying, like, I want connection. Well, you're not saying to who necessarily or how. Just say, I want to be opened up. I want to be able to have contact with my source being, or, can you show me where I am, in the galaxy? How do I fit into the universe? Whatever it is, without like asking for specifics. Let's say you're like, oh, I want to see a plebeian. Well, that might not be in your boxes of potentiality. It may or may not be, and they can align certain things. But so you just have to be open to whatever comes to you. Like, some people are like, what? I was this kind of being, and I'm like, well, that's what I'm seeing, and there's all different ones, from, ants, mantis, peacock. I mean, I've seen all different ones. I'm like, whoa, what is all that? Yeah, there's it's way out there, but yeah. So, I mean, as far as where they're at, but you have, my understanding is, like, Earth is like a seed planet. So, everything that exists here is like the larval stage that they showed me of my butterfly experience. So, yeah. So, just like there's the feline beings, we know this. We know there's the mantis beings. We know there's like a mer race. There's all these. But these are their, like, I don't want to say base because that sounds demeaning, but this is their initial incarnation. Like, on Earth is where it starts. They use that energetic DNA and everything else, including the living water, from Earth. We're not the only seed planet, so to speak, but this is where life stems from. That's why Earth is so protected. People will keep going, why are we seeing so many alien ships and all this other stuff? Because they don't want us to destroy the seed planet.
Right.
We'll never allow any of that kind of stuff to happen because
we're helping them.
Right. So, and that's where like familiars come from, because you might have a life that you have had a feline being life, or like mine's wolf, and I've seen the wolf race, and I had a friend who saw them in her near-death experience, where they're, in our understanding, and from what she told me too, they're kind of like, they guard the portals, the divine portals, like they sense your energy if you are, of that energy, to be able to travel, So I thought that was interesting. So everything, I think, has a manifestation somewhere that's more evolved, including us. Those light body beings we see, well, that's our higher evolution, so to speak.
Yeah, I had an interesting, it's about the process, right? And exactly what you said about like the manifestation and the ego. And so I tried a quantum healing hypnosis, right? Mm-hmm. And I went into it like trying so hard to be open.
Right.
And yet part of me was almost knowing, like it almost, anyways, long story short, I cut out at an hour, like the ego just woke up, and I sat up. I'm like, nope, apparently like this isn't supposed to happen right now.
Yes.
And I really believe that was Source, God's way of kind of giving me what I wanted, quote, so I could, expand and see the universe, and then proving to myself, okay, maybe I'm not ready. Mm-hmm. Like I still have work to do.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm saying in my trail of evolution. It was always like, oh, that happened. Because my husband's done that many times, had these huge experiences, and go, oh, it's like, but I get it. Everybody moves through these energies and these understandings at their own pace. And like you said, I chose to have an earth experience. I don't need to see all this mystical stuff. I'll do and support you what I can, but this is just where I want to be, Yeah. And I respect that. So, and I understand what you were saying about the Beyond Quantum, because for years, they didn't want anyone to read me. People had asked, or other different things, or all these different spiritual things that people can like look into you, right? Or your energy. People would be like, you're shielding. I'm like, Source, Source would not let, it wasn't until like very recently that, they allowed such a thing, or that it was called to have anyone do anything. And it was mostly because it was like a barter exchange, like you do this, I'll do that. Or someone that I knew was a relative and I had contact after death communication with my mom. So like he was guided to ask me to do a tarot, and he was kind of like, oh, because everything showed up healed, and he couldn't figure it out. He's like, I've not seen this. He's like, it doesn't mean it's going to stay this way, but like all the cards show you're healed. He's like, anyway, it was just the weirdest thing, but I knew they kind of wanted me to have that validation, just like the Beyond Quantum stuff didn't even bring up most of the stuff I questioned. It was all about being source code and putting the code back in, and creation and the God pantheons. I'm like, that's not what I came. That was not what I was.
What the heck?
Right, and it showed me the life that I literally jumped back. I don't even know if I don't think, because of some of the things that manifested in this life, that I went home for cleansing, and that does happen. I literally jumped right back into a body from my last death, so I didn't get that energy.
Oh, you didn't have any rejuvenation time?
Right, so I literally didn't go home for that cleansing. So because I had a mission, so I jumped right back in, and so I kept recreating my death experience. Literally, because she was a young 12 or 13-year-old girl. I won't get into the specifics because they're traumatic, but she was attacked by a man, and he choked her out, which is my lack of oxygen thing I keep repeating, and buried her alive because he thought she was dead. Yeah.
Whoa,
in this woods. And so all this musty, that's why all these musty and earthy smells set me off. Like I go into I used to go into anxiety if I smelled them because of that, like the broken down leaves and yeah. So,
whoa, I had that. I have that. And I had many years ago, when I was doing a meditation, I came up with that I was buried alive, and because my throat, and I was like, show me like what's going on with my throat. And I got the scene of being buried alive. And then I got confirmation like later on. And I find that just like
the weird synchronicities, right?
I love it. I mean, yeah. I love it in a weird way.
That is so just,
I love it in a weird way.
But and that I think did come up because I did ask, well, I know this is a pattern. Why is it repeating that all of my death experiences had to do with lack of oxygen of some way?
Yeah, drowning.
I couldn't breathe. Yeah.
I was just
that cell memory was still, because I didn't clear it, it was still trying to repeat.
It's so interesting. And that makes sense to me. And I feel bad. Well, I use the term loosely, but I feel bad for people that have. I mean, I don't pretend to have any real idea, but I can understand what you're saying. But I feel bad for those that are going through life that have no concept of carrying anything from a past life and just feeling like so sick and heavy. And because I know I feel weighed down, and I at least can understand, like, I don't know why, but I will at some point. But some people have no idea of cell memory and past lives, and it's like, I don't know. I guess I go to gratitude for my experiences, and just
very grateful because they allowed me. Because a lot of people are like, why can't I see my past lives? And I don't usually call them past lives because everything exists in the now. And being more multidimensional, I go through timelines like that. Do you know what I mean? So everything exists in the quantum in the now. So you can put and plant things and even remembrances in your own timeline. I've experienced this, validated this. People can, trippy or not, that's just the life I've led. And it does, you have to start to question yourself. But I've been certified as sane, so, if anybody questions that.
I have the paperwork in the
other. Yeah. So I always laugh. I'm like, well, but the thing that is funny about it is, you get, because of the way the timelines are, you do get, I feel some of it's more bleed through because it is all existing in the same frequency, like not the same frequency, but the same now quantum space. So there is some of that when I looked into people's, like when I do what I walk them back through first where they started to fracture, right? It shows me in their timeline where they fractured their energy or had a big shift. It could be positive or negative, but you know what I mean? It could be a growth moment. It could be an expansion. I rather look at growth and expand,
Yeah.
Those are they show me that, but then, once I get that reweaved, then they'll walk me back into these incarnations. And often I find these personality complexes and some of the things that people do and are drawn to are from these other lives all the time. It's like, and they'll even chime in because, I open these portals and it's almost like I'm having this conversation. What I call my friend has taught me, calls it a phase lock, right? With their consciousness, and they'll be like, that came from me, or that's for me, that's why they do that, It's really kind of funny because, they want to take credit like this, that's me, and it's like, oh, okay, and they're so collective. So, some of that is for growth, some of it's for healing. Like I've seen many things that were like for healing because they're still working out that energetic pattern through you to get that balance. I always say the 360 view, like one lifetime you might have been the victim and the other time the abuser. It's like all of the thing that we're here for that 360 experience throughout all of our incarnations. But I have to comment here because my understanding is you're always like, oh, yeah, well, I said this and it didn't manifest here. You don't get that all lines of you. Okay, so, and those deja vu moments when those lines line up. So you may be saying it here, but it might be happening to another fractal in that timeline, not this timeline's consciousness. So, and I've seen that. So, because we're always like interweaving these timelines, right? because in my understanding, we each create our own. We just have energetic agreements. It's kind of like, the landscape of the color form. Remember those color forms where they give you the whole outline of the trees and everything, and then you built on it with these sticky things. Yeah. It's kind of like that. We're all given the base outline of where we are, and then, So
how do incarnations differ from timelines?
Incarnations is where your consciousness or your soul group was plugged into a different being. Timelines are all the versions of you literally working on different aspects and like making different choices to see which way it plays out. So like, I made this choice, that was a more loving choice, so it played out this way, so we experienced that. And it's for a combination of growth. So like, and what we're experiencing right now from what Spirit has told me is the convergence of those. Like, we've come to a point where we're healing those, because and making those more loving choices.
The timelines.
Yes.
So for visual, or for see if I'm understanding this, my soul, my essence, my consciousness has incarnated in past lives. Perhaps some of the issues I'm going through now are unresolved from those past incarnations. In this now moment, the timeline is that the personality things in my head are the timelines. So when I'm struggling, that's an aspect on a different timeline being like, well, you could choose not to struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and the ones that have more understanding guide us, you know what I mean? Like, have gone. I always say, like, we're always ghosting someone else's timeline, and our guides are just higher aspects of us. So that's my understanding. So it's kind of like this timeline already made a better choice, so it's trying to urge you, because my understanding of timelines is it affects so many forward, so many backward. They showed me it's like a string of light effect. You lighten up one to one, but also the ladder effect, where you're always reaching a timeline that's lower and trying to pull it forward. Energetic.
Like a dream. I just had a vision of a dream catcher.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Huh. But so it's all that kind of stuff that that interconnection. It is like a web. It's an energetic web of everything that you are. Well, they showed me it on a blue light grid, right? So that there was all these different incarnations of me on each of these points in this like neon blue light grid. And so each one was making different choices and doing different things.
So let's talk about the work that you do.
Okay.
Because you do some very interesting, cool work. Obviously. So minus the grid work. Whatever.
Minus the grid. Well,
what do you do?
Ever since I integrated, remember I told you I had that fractal that came in. It literally came through a portal, and I seen it in a violet Merkaba, and it literally said to me, well, I'm like, no, I'm dealing with too much. They're like, no, you asked for this. This is, you asked. And then that's when it came through the portal and to me and literally merged with me, like, was trying to integrate. And I've slowly, not slowly, but rather quickly, if you think about it, integrated that energy of my like source grid fractal, right? It was always with me, but I mean, it literally merged. It said, basically, here's your gifts, right? Like, you need these right now. This is the code we're giving you. And so it has expanded what I do in some nature. It's like, I always had like certain abilities and everything. But they're saying going forward and with that new grid that's healing and lighting up, it's basically like we're rebooting it. There's this energetic thing with the divine feminine and masculine that is like supposed to be rebooting these grids, and we haven't really performed it properly and forgotten how to perform it properly, because it's an energetic thing from heart space to heart space. It's not what people think. It's this complete opening and vulnerability of that heart energy to connect the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Because if you anybody that pays attention to our world knows it's very out of whack, right? and I don't feed myself the news, but I sense these things just by the people I come in contact with. Anyway, so my understanding of that and what needs to happen is, this integration, because what I was shown is the original, like, so many things are coming up for the root chakra, because there's, for two reasons. There's the initial, what I call incarnation wound or PTSD of becoming this, all that is being and knows everything in complete consciousness, and stuffing it like a genie in a lamp into this little bitty body that you can only carry so much light energy in, right?
Yeah.
So you're not realizing that you are all these other beings and all these other timelines and dimensions. You forget all that. That's the amnesia, the illusion that you're just this little bitty body, right? And in this small consciousness, as you want to put it, not expanded. So what they're having me do is what I described earlier with, where the fractalizations happen within this timeline, but then they take me through the others. And the soul, what I call soul cloud, I actually call the modality soul cloud, like connecting to your soul cloud, just like you connect to the cloud for information, right? Well, soul cloud is this thing I do where I open these portals and reconnect these different consciousnesses of all that you are that wants to connect right now. You have many different fractals that are a part of you, but the ones that like you need going forward, because I always ask spirit for the highest good. So they give me the ones that you are trying to integrate right now to have a better, like, I create these phase locks so you have a connection to that consciousness. So it's kind of like you and me having a conversation. Well, you're able to integrate it. At first, it'll be more like a conversation, like they always want to show me, remember that old trick with the 2 tin cans and the string? So at first it's going to be more like that kind of conversation until it like integrates with you, and then you're just going to have these knowings of these other fractals of yourself. So it's to heal that incarnation wound of you're not just this consciousness. You are a multidimensional being, and so it's to create some of those reconnections, because moving forward, I was shown that that's kind of, people talk about the ascension process, but it's more that to realize that, you're not locked into this storyline. You can move your consciousness through all space and time and not have to die physically or anything else in order to go home or to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest, I don't want to use the word deceits, but that we were given is that there is or needs to be death, because then we create it just to go home, and you don't need that to go home.
Yeah.
Home is literally through the divine portal. Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
So essentially, you help alleviate the struggle within in this moment, in this time, for these struggles currently. And then we have more struggles to look forward to, obviously. That's life.
Well,
I mean, really, that's life.
Well, because these fractals come into you to help you with your purpose. And if you can integrate them, then it helps give that understanding of how you're creating, how you're showing up in the world, and everything else. So it switches your perception. That's why, I keep saying light it up, because we're here to light up the grid, but we're also here to relight, and that's why I call myself a remembrance guide, because this is all within you. I am just showing you through an energetic walk who you are authentically, and it's stepping into that authenticity. They have stressed me, and by they I mean my own soul cloud collective, how important it is to step into that authenticity going forward, because the more people are aware, the more they awaken, they will see through your masks. So you cannot be anything but authentic. So it's kind of like this awakening and awareness process, to work through that and being mindful of how you're creating, because going forward, that is how you align with this light, this healed light grid, and so unfortunately for a lot of people, their math flipping is really triggering them right now. because they're so used to putting on this energetic front, much less personality front, that's not authentic to their being. And we create those oftentimes from different traumas and conditioning, because we're always in this fear, because it's so ingrained in this earth density of judgment. I mean, that everybody's judging us, but it's really us judging ourselves. Like, do we match up? Are we worthy? Because I always say that unworthiness comes from, that initial trauma wound that I was talking about, because it's like, why was I cut off from everything? We forget why, why was I, that selective amnesia of what we are. And if you think about it, what I tell people is like, if you knew everything and all that you are, you couldn't function and do what you chose to came here to do, because you'd miss so many loved ones. You'd miss your whole planet. You'd miss your home dimension, whatever it is and however you represent. But that longing would make it so hard until you integrated to literally experience this storyline. Because if I had known all this, and they've shown me twice within the last month, like how I can eject from the storyline. They called it Project Dreamscape, and that way it was created so that people could experience and create limitlessly and expand and learn how to do this and do it through the place of love and everything. But we were meant to be these observers and see what would happen and flow through these stories. But people got too attached to the storyline, like I am Lorelei, there was supposed to be an integration. You were supposed to do that, but they got too attached to it, to where it was detrimental if you couldn't remove them from the dreamscape, because it would literally cause psychosis and damage and different things because of because they literally believed they were this character. I mean, they showed me this. I'm not claiming this is just how spirit represented it to me. So that was my understanding of it, and that's why we're bringing this awareness. That's why there's so many. You've seen those memes where these signs really say something else, and there are all these words in a programming way, but there's also signs like that, and especially the movies going on right now, and in movies all the time, of layers of these truths start to get people to awaken. Because once you're aware, you become that multidimensional thing again. You can transverse these timelines and these stories, and I can go here or there, or experience this or that. But before that, people were so locked in, there was no way. And I won't get into how all that, came to be, but, so it's kind of like regaining our sovereignty, our authenticity, our true essence, by doing this healing and literally, expanding beyond this consciousness that is locked in this particular place and time. And some of us are, because we need that experience to grow, and we chose it as an experience to create. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why you came here. Like, my daughter's like, I came to be the observer of this life. I'm just, hanging out here, seeing how you all create a planet so I can go back to my own and not do the same stuff.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess my question would be, do you not think it would be a lot easier for the human experience if people at least kind of had an idea of why they're here?
Yeah, but that's where it comes into respecting sovereignty. Like I always say, people who find my message or resonate with my truth were meant to find it. You know what I mean? Everybody, it becomes a seeker when they're ready.
Yeah.
We all carry individual codes that they show me. They refer to a lot of computer terms, but almost like a flash drive, Like you might have a code for me, I have a code for you. Because we all can't carry the full light code of source in one body, right? So we have these energetic agreement to meet up, to have these conversations. Even so, like sometimes you'll walk past someone and you're like, whoa, that was weird. I felt that. They were passing code. I said something.
Oh, really? And it can be done through words and just living life, basically.
Yeah, words, intentions, all of that stuff. They call it it's kind of funny because they always show me that mysticism and science are what is creation. But mysticism, not mysticism, but like in magic, as my husband says, it's just science that hasn't been proven yet. So, but they refer to it on both levels, almost like you need both. Like emotions literally are the creation force. That's why other beings envy or want to learn, because they don't have the capacity of that depth of emotion for creation.
Interesting. That was freaking cool. So how many of there are you out there in the world? Like, there's got to be a lot of you. You know what I'm trying to say?
Like source code, or people that are
yeah, there's got to be a lot of people out there doing it to help this.
Yeah.
I call it ascension instead of
right. Well, from my understanding, there's people who came here as source code, and then there's people who I channel Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Sophia, all these different things, because they're being used as a channel to bring that energy to the grid for source code to be able to activate the grid, right? So some people actually embody source code, and other people are channeling source code. So that's where it kind of throws people off. And all jobs are very, very important to this project, right? But that's kind of my understanding. Because, you're probably wondering, through this whole talk, how does this stuff line up? Well, there's layers of creation and layers of truth. You know what I'm saying? So different storylines, they all exist within here. They're all thought forms. So this is just the thought form of, this reintegration and this re-energizing of the grid. So when you ask how many are there of me, well, they told me that I put all these fractals, and that's what they were showing me, all these fractals of source that were going out onto the grid. They exist in multiple different dimensions and frequencies in order to do this work. There's lots of grid workers and architects, and and they even gave me a new name when I was working with someone. They called it a grid. I forget the name, but basically they're the ones that build the support first for the grid, and then there's the actual grid workers, and then there's the grid architects, and all this understanding. Excuse me. And so there's quite a bit of us, but a lot of the ones that answered the call is because they have different gifts and higher light energies, because their planets no longer have this duality and things. So they come in with pure light. They're literally, I've heard people say this, and they gave it to me in one of my experiences, but back then I didn't understand it. They were like soul battery. Well, those beings, because they're high light energy, came in to channel that energy for us grid architects to work with and to use to relight this grid and energize
they're your battery.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So they're all very important roles. Nobody's above another. It's just through our incarnations, because they showed me, I've been incarnating since Earth was created, because I was a grid architect, right? So those thought forms that came into being, I helped, and those like me helped to make it a physical manifestation, right? So I was shown that there are many of us, that came into that, and then these others came in to do this work. They answered the call. Some of them remember it, they came through different portals and vortexes, all this stuff to bring their consciousness and energy here. And that is big work. And that's the universe looking out for the universe, as far as why all that came to be. And I just everything that you are is important here. That's why so many people have different abilities, and everybody wants to say, we are all one. And yes, we are, through prime source, God, whatever you want to give the name to. But not all of us are presenting here the same, consciousness wise or whatever. And not every one of us chooses to have certain abilities in this timeline. And between our soul energy and our physical DNA, determines how much you can do in a physical body. Like, I was shown that the reason, like, I'm able to do certain stuff and everything else, and why I chose this DNA line is because it can handle that expansion and it can handle that light energy. And, you know, the synchronicity of that, my family line, because I was told it's my maternal, is that their original name meant preacher or church man. So we've always been very spiritual beings, right? So that's why I chose, and that's why we keep incarnating in this family line through this time and faith to have that expansion, you know. So things are all a little different, but no equally less special, you know, because all of it is cogs in the wheel to make this expansion and to create a physical reality, you know. So I don't know, however you want to look at it, everybody and everything has a purpose. Even if it's just to have this experience and expand their soul cloud, it's still a reason, and it's still, you know, contributing to the life and the storyline that is Earth. Every little thing matters. Every life matters. And we don't leave here till we finish what we came, one way or another, one timeline or another. I mean, I've hopped a few. Just
oh, hey, folks, yeah. Let's hurry this up. So, you know, step on board so we can all.
Julie, are you ready to step into?
Oh my God, people. Okay, let's contact Loreli, everybody, and so we can doing this. Please. And on that note, I want to thank you, and maybe embarrass you, but point out how freaking humble you are. Like, wow, you're like the keeper of the planet, and yet you have no ego about you. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever, like, seriously, and that's all, like, towards, I'll call it the end here, but like, I'm watching the lights in the background, and I don't even know if you know what's going on, but every time you're on camera, you have like a light show going on behind you. So that's the first thing. I'm like, who are they? Like, what is that? Because it's just a spectrum. And then the other thing that just came to me was how, and I'm pointing this out so hopefully other people realize how freaking humble you are. It's like you, but I'm going to put you on a pedestal. You hold the keys to the planet and essentially this ascension process. Like, that's, you know what I mean? And yet it's just like, you're so humble about it.
Well, you know, wow. It's one of those things I thought coming out about any of it, you know, I really did, because, you know, I mean, you know what our world's like. And if somebody who wasn't spiritual or didn't understand any of this, they'd be like, wow, you know what I mean? And so, like, I thought about even, you know, coming out, but it was one of those things that, like, Spirit just kept saying, you need to speak your truth. You need to get out there. Those light codes need to be available to the collective, yada, yada, yada. But my understanding is, you know, you can't do the work I do through a place of ego, because that's not of unconditional love in that sense of self. A healed ego will be, you know, and our egos always get triggered because that's part of human nature. You know, I mean, we all have our moments where, and our trauma triggers. I'm nowhere above that, you know, but that's my earth story. So when you can, like, separate that, like, often I'm talking from my higher self. So, you know, if you can kind of, you know, step aside from your ego and your storyline, you're able to be that authentic self. It's kind of like taming and loving the ego, you know, of where you can put that aside and say, you know, this is authentically who I am. I need to step into that because I am not helping anybody playing small and hiding away. I'm not fulfilling my purpose. They're like, if you're not going to fulfill it, you don't need to be there. And that's exactly right. So it's either step into your purpose or get off the planet, you know. and I get that, you know, but so I guess, you know, I am just grateful to be me and to, have as many chances, and how many times have I come back now? Because I keep having these things where they pull me, like I was telling you. Even this morning, I had an incident where literally, even people who normally sense my energy through timelines were like, you literally left the grid, like the thing. And they did, I don't know who, but were trying to get me to like, and just to show me things like, this is really where you are, but go back. Like I had a fight to get back here. So my understanding of that all is, you have to be authentically you. Like, that's my story. It might not be your story. None of this, if it doesn't resonate with you, is for you in this storyline of yours. And that's kind of where I have this humility. Like, okay, they gave me this story. They're all still stories, because, to me, all that exists is that source energy in the void of creation. The rest, all of the rest, are thought forms we have created to experience from. I won't get into it because people get upset, but everything is a thought form.
Yeah, I get that. So, yeah, I just want to thank you for being you. From the bottom of my heart, It's enlightening just watching you and hearing you. And,
really?
Yeah. And if people resonate, great. But if not, like, just take note of the presence right here. Like, you're beautiful. You have, like, such a grace and beautiful presence. And I'm freaking honored to like have this interaction with you. You know what I mean? Like, from the bottom of my heart, it's enlightened me in this moment in time on a plethora of levels.
And and I guess we had to make this connection as well in a one-on-one kind of thing, because we're always giving each other life.
Yeah, like that was so. For those listening, for those following along, I've never done this before. I'm not famous and professional like Loreli, but I wanted to get to know you. I'm talking to, this is weird, a screen, but you. So yeah, I wanted to get to know you, and then I got an information. We'll just do an interview quote with her and get to know her that way, and then the rest of the world can get to know her too.
I thank you. When you said that, all of a sudden spirit clicked and like, yeah, ask this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that'll be cool.
So it's your time for the world to get to know you. Here it is. This is more life.
In a more authentic, relaxed way, yeah.
Right? This is more life. Welcome and get to know her. So thank you. And I thank you because I got to know you. And so that was why I wanted to do it.
If you made it this far, thank you for listening.
Right? Follow along. And if you didn't, don't worry, you'll come back.
You'll come back when it's ready and right for you.
Yeah. It'll all work out one way or another.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Julie, for this authentic heart-to-heart, and just even wanting to speak to me. You're all of a sudden like, hey, can we meet tonight? Let's do this. I'm like, oh. Spirit's like, yeah, do it. I'm like, okay, here we go.
And I don't claim to know what Spirit, talks to me, but that was not me. Like the Julie, because the Julie that I identify with, we were like, oh my God, like, why would she want to talk to me? Like, and something was just like, nope, it took over and just typed. Yep. It was like, you're asking to just talk to her for an interview. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, and then when we communicated back, I'm in the garage and I'm like, what if this actually happens? Like, what the heck is going on right now? What am I doing? And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm sending you a link. And I did not have time to get back to, I really don't know what happened, but I don't have time to get back to that place because I'm back there right now. Like, what the fuck just happened? Pardon my swearing.
That was just a whole experience.
Right? That was a whole experience that the normal Julie was not involved in.
That was your higher self stepping in for that.
Right?
Yes.
So for those following along, I guess this is what some higher self could look like, stepping in and taking over. Cool.
Yay us, right?
Right? I'm going to actually have to go back and watch this to see what actually happened.
Yeah. And I love you. Seriously. You have no idea all the things You know, and every time you light up that screen in our groups, you know, like I am so thankful for you. I love you, and I know we don't get a lot of one-on-one speech, so that's probably why you wanted to talk to me. But I'm just really grateful for you.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not going to cry on camera. Did you go over and do that? On that note,
I know you almost had me cry before. I'm like,
right? So I can't do that on camera in front of people. No. I was gonna cry. So I love you, and you have a party to go to. So
yeah.
Get your party on.
Party on. Light it up, as we say here.
Send your light, send your love, and yeah, rock it.
I love you, and thank you all for joining us today.
Right. Thank you all. I forgot. Okay.